5 rings on his fingers, a Hall of Fame bust in Canton for decades, Charles Haley stood alone as the only player in NFL history to win 5 Super Bowl championships. He was a pass-rushing genius who changed games with his hands and his mind, but behind the greatness was something darker. The kind of guy who would say things like, he can't play at all about his own teammates. That wasn't just trash talk, that was Charles Haley. Today, we're diving into the 5 NFL players Charles Haley clashed with most, the conflicts that turned locker rooms into war zones, the chaos that forced a dynasty to trade away a Hall of Famer in his prime for almost nothing, and the mental illness that was behind it all, leaving what Haley himself calls a road of destruction. This is a story about talent and turmoil, about 5 Super Bowls and 5 broken relationships. Let's talk about the players Charles Haley hated. The 49ers locker room in the late 1980s was one of the most professional in football, but Charles Haley brought a different energy. His loyalty to quarterback Joe Montana was intense. Too intense. He would verbally get on Montana during practice and meetings, but when Steve Young arrived to compete for the starting job, everything changed. Haley saw Young as a threat, someone trying to steal Joe's job. His loyalty to Montana twisted into rage toward Young. Teammates watched Haley harass Young relentlessly. He had to be physically restrained from charging at him. Years later, in his 1997 book, Haley still called Young such a whiner. It wasn't until after Haley got help for his bipolar disorder that he understood what he'd done. He explained it simply. The reason why I held things against him was that he was trying to take Joe's job, and I loved Joe so much that I took it out on Steve. What's the craziest teammate conflict you've ever heard of? Drop a comment below and subscribe for more deep dives into sports history. But Haley's behavior in San Francisco reached a breaking point, and it involved the one player you absolutely could not touch, Jerry Rice. There was an unspoken rule in that locker room. Nobody messed with Jerry Rice. He was the most respected player on the team, the glue that held everything together. Charles Haley broke that rule. Haley got into a major confrontation with Rice. Details are scarce, but former teammate Dexter Carter said it was the final straw. The day that he went at Jerry Rice and Jerry went back at him, what transpired in that locker room that morning led to 2 weeks later, the 49ers literally giving Charles away to their toughest competitor. Think about that. A Hall of Fame pass rusher in his prime, traded for 2nd and 3rd round draft picks. The 49ers gave him away because he crossed the line with Jerry Rice. Coach George Seifert later admitted the trade was a good move on their part and a bad move on my part. The 49ers knew they were giving away one of the best defensive players in football, but they had no choice. Haley had become impossible to manage. The Rice incident proved that no one was safe from his chaos, not even the most untouchable star on the roster. Before we get to Dallas, we need to talk about the other chaos. There's a famous story about Tim Harris. Haley allegedly cut a hole in the roof of Harris's convertible and urinated on the steering wheel. Haley denied it. Either way, that's not normal behavior. And it got worse. Haley clashed constantly with head coach George Seifert. Reports say he masturbated during team meetings. He threw used toilet paper at a coach. These weren't pranks. These were signs of something deeply wrong. Haley later explained that his anger at Seifert came from a specific place. He blamed the coach for letting his mentor and best friend, Ronnie Lott, leave through Plan B free agency in 1991. What I did wrong was, I held George responsible for Ronnie being exposed to Plan B. I couldn't let it go, and I had to get out because of it. The pattern becomes clear. Haley's most explosive moments came when he felt someone had betrayed his personal loyalties. Whether it was Young threatening Montana's job or the team letting Lott go, Haley channeled his emotional pain into targeted destruction. He couldn't process his feelings in a healthy way, so he lashed out at everyone around him. In 1992, the 49ers traded Haley to their biggest rival, the Dallas Cowboys, on his first day in Dallas. He walked through the locker room completely naked, shouting, "I'm the last naked warrior." That was his introduction. But Dallas was different than San Francisco. The Cowboys under Jimmy Johnson and later Barry Switzer had a culture that was more tolerant of chaos as long as you won games. They could handle your personality. And Haley won games. The numbers prove it. In 1991, before Haley arrived, the Cowboys' defense ranked 17th out of 28 teams in points allowed. They had only 23 sacks all season. That's terrible. In 1992, with Haley on the team, they allowed the fewest yards in the entire league. Their sacks nearly doubled to 44. Haley was the missing piece. Owner Jerry Jones said it best. With all the great stars we had, we couldn't spell Super Bowl until Charles Haley came with the Cowboys. Head coach Jimmy Johnson agreed. Without question, bringing Charles Haley in made us the best team in the league. Quarterback Troy Aikman said, Haley gave the defense instant credibility. That's not a small thing. The Cowboys had talent, but they lacked the edge that separates good teams from dynasties. Haley brought that edge. His presence changed the entire defensive mentality. The Cowboys won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. Haley earned another first-team All-Pro selection in 1994, this time as a defensive end. He'd already been first-team All-Pro as a linebacker in 1990. That versatility showed his football intelligence. He wasn't just physically gifted, he understood the game at a deep level. His former defensive line coach said Haley was really quick off the ball, had great hands for pass rush, and was really smart. That Haley could have played any defensive position if asked. Haley was selected in the fourth round of the 1986 NFL Draft from James Madison University. He's considered one of the greatest draft steals in league history. He led the 49ers in sacks in each of his first 6 seasons. That consistency is rare. Most pass rushers have ups and downs. Haley just kept producing year after year. His Hall of Fame mentor, Ronnie Lott, once called him crazy like a fox. That phrase captures something important. Yes, Haley seemed out of control, but there was also intelligence behind his actions. On the field, he was calculating. He studied offensive linemen. He knew their tendencies. He exploited their weaknesses with precision. He was there for the glory years. He was part of the machine that made San Francisco the team of the 1980s. But all that success couldn't cover up the problems brewing underneath. But he found a new target in Dallas, Chad Hennings. Hennings was a quiet, low-key Christian conservative guy, a former Air Force fighter pilot who just wanted to play football. Haley wouldn't leave him alone. He harassed Hennings every day, rode him constantly. One day, Hennings snapped. He grabbed Haley by the neck, shoved his head out a window, threatened to kill him, and Haley backed down, because that's how it always worked with Haley. He only stopped when someone showed they could hurt him back. It was the same pattern over and over. Push until you meet resistance, then respect the person who stood up to you. In Dallas, Haley's chaos was sometimes useful. In 1993, the Cowboys lost a game while running back Emmitt Smith was holding out for a new contract. Haley threw a helmet-smashing tantrum in the locker room. The outburst pressured owner Jerry Jones to end the holdout and get Smith back on the field. Whether Haley planned it or not, his rage became a tool. The Cowboys needed his aggressive energy. His borderline unhinged persona gave the entire defense swagger and ferocity. For the Cowboys of the 1990s, the chaos was part of the championship formula. By the time Haley retired, his resume was undeniable. 5 Super Bowl championships, 2 first-team All-Pro selections at 2 different positions, 5 Pro Bowls, 2 NFC Defensive Player of the Year awards, 100.5 career sacks. At the time of his retirement, he held the record for most career sacks in the Super Bowl with 4.5. He ranked 3rd all-time in total postseason sacks with 11. These numbers built an ironclad case for the Hall of Fame. He was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2015. His on-field achievements were unquestionable. But by that point, everyone knew there was more to his story than statistics and championships. So why did all this happen? Why was Charles Haley like this? The answer came years after he retired in 2002. Haley was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Suddenly, everything made sense. Haley described himself as a 22-year-old athlete who had an 11-year-old kid inside of me crying for help, but I refused to ask for it. That internal pain created a road of destruction. It ruined his 19-year marriage. It destroyed relationships with teammates and coaches. The things we thought were just Haley being crazy were actually manic episodes. Masturbating in meetings, walking around naked. The verbal attacks, these were symptoms of a severe mental illness, and the NFL in the 1980s and 1990s had no idea how to handle it. They just saw a guy who played angry, so they used that anger. They weaponized his symptoms for on-field success. The culture rewarded aggression and intimidation. Haley's manic energy made him a better pass rusher, so nobody asked questions, nobody got him help. The illness went untreated for over a decade. The NFL culture of that era couldn't distinguish between competitive fire and mental health crisis. Haley's behavior should have raised red flags, but instead, it was celebrated as intensity, as passion, as the edge that made him great. The league benefited from his untreated illness. They got championships out of it. They got a Hall of Fame career. But at what cost to the man himself? His ex-wife had suggested he had manic depression back in 1988. He dismissed it. He didn't want to believe something was wrong, so the illness continued to destroy his life off the field while making him a champion on it. Haley has even speculated that the 49ers might have known something was wrong. He remembers the team giving him pills. They told him the pills were for inflammation or headaches, but Haley now believes they were mood stabilizers. The team was trying to manage his behavior without telling him the truth, without getting him real help. It's unconfirmed, but it speaks to how taboo mental health was. A franchise might secretly medicate a player rather than confront the issue directly. The turning point came at a family dinner. Haley slammed his hand on the table so hard that his children looked terrified. Other people in the restaurant left. When he saw the fear in his kids' eyes, something changed. I just said from that moment on, you know what, I'm going to get some help. And when I got the help, I admitted to myself that I had a mental illness, and that was the key. That moment of clarity came from seeing himself through his children's eyes. They were scared of him, their own father. That reality broke through his denial in a way nothing else could. Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to realize you need help. For Haley, rock bottom was terrorizing his own kids. That was the line he couldn't cross and still live with himself. Since then, Haley has committed to therapy and medication to manage his mood swings, but his recovery got more complicated. He revealed he also struggled with alcohol and drug addiction. It started as a way to cope when his youngest daughter was diagnosed with leukemia. Eventually, he entered a dual diagnosis treatment center. That place addressed both his mental health and his addiction at the same time. Haley credits that as the real turning point in his recovery, the dual diagnosis approach was critical. Many people with bipolar disorder also struggle with substance abuse. The substances become a way to self-medicate, to try to control the mood swings without professional help. But addiction only makes everything worse. It creates a spiral that's hard to escape. Haley needed treatment that addressed both problems at once. Haley has a unique philosophy about making things right. He draws a line between regret and apology. I don't apologize, I regret my action. We say sorry, and it's just like saying I love you, and it has no meaning. For Haley, an apology is about seeking forgiveness. It's about making yourself feel better. Regret is different. Regret is about taking ownership. It's internal. It doesn't ask for anything back. This isn't just playing with words, it's a deep ethical stance. When you apologize, you're asking the other person to absolve you. You're trying to make a transaction. Regret is unilateral. It's acknowledging the harm you caused and owning it. Whether the other person forgives you or not, that takes more courage. It requires you to sit with the pain of what you've done without seeking relief. And Haley is clear about responsibility. I'm not going to put everything on being bipolar because my mama taught me right from wrong. The diagnosis explains his behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. He's reached out to former teammates like Steve Young to express his regret, not to apologize, not to ask for forgiveness, just to let them know he understands the pain he caused. That's accountability without demanding anything in return. Today, Charles Haley is a mentor for rookies, for both the 49ers and the Cowboys. The teams whose locker rooms he once destroyed now trust him to guide their youngest players. That's remarkable. It shows how far he's come. It shows that people have seen his transformation and believe it's real. He knows now that he needs to be there for these young guys to help them avoid the mistakes he made. He founded Tackle Tomorrow, a program that provides reading resources to struggling schools in the Dallas area. He speaks publicly about mental health as a keynote speaker for organizations like the Meninger Clinic. He works to dismantle the stigma around mental illness, especially for men. He knows that men often refuse to ask for help. He says they'd rather run out of gas than ask for help. He's trying to change that culture. His message is powerful. Silence is a killer. He urges people to claim their diagnosis, to own it. If you don't claim it, you don't own it, and I own it. He wrote his autobiography not as a celebration of his 5 rings, but as education. He wanted people to understand how mental illness affected his relationships. He wanted his story to help others who might be suffering in silence. The book is titled Fear No Evil: Tackling Quarterbacks and Demons on My Way to the Hall of Fame. The title itself tells you what the book is really about. Not just the quarterbacks he sacked, but the demons he fought inside his own mind. Haley's advocacy work has real impact. When a Hall of Famer talks openly about mental illness, it gives other people permission to do the same, especially in football culture, where toughness is everything and vulnerability is seen as weakness. Haley is redefining what strength means. He's showing that asking for help is the bravest thing you can do. His story challenges the way we think about athletes and mental health. For too long, we celebrated the chaos without asking what was causing it. We cheered the aggression without considering the cost. Haley's transformation forces us to reckon with those choices, to ask whether we're doing enough to support players who are struggling, to recognize that the same intensity that makes someone great on the field might be destroying them off it. Charles Haley won 5 Super Bowl rings, but his 6th victory was more important than all of them combined. The battle for his own mind, the journey from chaos to clarity, from destruction to redemption. He's proof that it's possible to confront a painful past, take real accountability, and build a life of purpose. He's living proof that mental illness doesn't have to define you, that recovery is possible, that you can rebuild what you've broken. His legacy isn't just 100.5 career sacks or being the first player to 5 championships. It's the transformation from a man who terrorized everyone around him to a man who now helps others. From someone whose symptoms were weaponized by a sport to someone who uses his platform to advocate for mental health. From a person in denial to someone who owns his diagnosis and uses it to save lives. The man who enters the Hall of Fame is calmer, wiser, and more contemplative than the force of nature who dominated the league. The true legacy of Charles Haley encompasses this entire journey. The 5th ring isn't just his last Super Bowl trophy with the Cowboys. It's the championship of self-awareness he earned in the quiet years after the crowds fell silent. A victory more durable and more meaningful than any he achieved on the field. 5 rings made him a legend, but the work he's done since then made him whole. If you want more deep dive sports stories like this, hit that subscribe button. And remember, getting help isn't weakness, It's the strongest thing you can do.